the sun is the greatest source of life? Wrong. Out here, it is nothing more than a dying ember, struggling to pierce the darkness and failing. Look at our home, Earth, the place we call permanent. But if you place it beside what we are about to confront, this entire planet is nothing more than a grain of dust, ready to be crushed by a single twist of gravity. It looks too perfect, so perfect that it demands suspicion. Welcome to the crown of death. Forget everything you were ever taught. Saturn is not a planet in the way we understand it. No solid ground, no crust, no place for your feet to ever land. It is 760 times the volume of Earth, yet its density defies logic. If you could find an ocean large enough, this titan would float on the surface like a beach ball the size of a kingdom. An entity that warps space with its gravity, yet remains a hollow illusion of gas. And its most brilliant feature, the rings, is a paradox of scale. Tens of thousands of bands stretching hundreds of thousands of kilometers, yet less than 100 meters thick. Imagine a sheet of paper wrapped around a massive sphere. It is so thin it almost doesn't exist, yet wide enough to hold the ashes of an entire moon, torn to pieces. Here is the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Those rings are not old. Between 100 and 200 million years old, Saturn itself is 4.5 billion years old. The rings are less than 5% of Saturn's age. The dinosaurs were still around when those rings were forming, and for most of its existence, Saturn had no rings at all. And the Cassini Mission team confirmed the rings are already dying. Ring rain, ice particles, pulled inward by Saturn's own magnetic field, drains them at several tons per second. Within 100 million years, they are gone. So, we are not looking at a permanent feature of the solar system. We are looking at a window. The only civilization that will ever see Saturn like this is us. Right now, in this specific slice of time. Before us, bare planet. After us, bare planet again. You and I happen to be alive in the one era when any of this is visible. That is a very big coincidence. But the rings are only the beginning. At Saturn's North Pole, something sits that nobody expected to find and nobody has fully explained. Not a circular storm, not a chaotic smear of gas, a hexagon, a perfect six-sided structure, each wall stretching 14,500 kilometers, wider than Earth, with edges so geometrically precise that computational teams at the European Space Agency spent years trying to reproduce it and kept falling short. The winds inside that hexagon run at 1,800 kilometers per hour, faster than a bullet. In a planet of pure swirling gas, something has held that shape steady with ruler straight edges for at least 40 years of direct observation. Nobody can fully tell you why. Now, what would actually happen if you fell into Saturn? On Earth, every fall has a conclusion. The ground comes up and everything stops. But on Saturn, the concept of ground is non-existent. You would just fall, and fall forever. No solid surface, no final impact to set you free. You would fall for hours, even days, as the atmosphere thickens around you, pressing in from every direction at once. It's like sinking into an endless ocean where the water never stops getting denser until the day you're no longer falling. You're simply suspended, imprisoned in a massive, crushing liquid mass with no beginning and no end. The teams at Johnson Space Center modeled this scenario based on the final, tragic 91 seconds recorded by Cassini's instruments. First, you plunge through the upper clouds, ammonia crystals at -170 degrees Celsius, with crosswinds violent enough to shred a spacecraft to pieces. The deeper you go, the thicker the clouds become. Pressure mounts ruthlessly at measurable depths. The atmosphere already possesses a crushing force that would flatten a submarine like a soda can. Keep falling. The gas becomes so compressed that it stops behaving like a gas and starts to become a liquid, with no clear boundary, just a slow, suffocating shift from air into something as thick as warm syrup. Except the pressure never stops escalating, and the temperature is now climbing into the thousands of degrees. Here, a phenomenon occurs that almost no laboratory on Earth can replicate. Under pressures millions of times greater than what we experience, hydrogen, the simplest element in the universe, the stuff inside party balloons, is squeezed so hard that its electrons strip away and begin to flow like electricity through metal. Physicists at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory have briefly created this state, liquid metallic hydrogen, and it conducts electricity perfectly. Saturn possesses an entire ocean of this material, tens of thousands of kilometers deep, spinning with the planet's rotation. That rotating ocean of liquid conductor is what generates Saturn's enormous magnetic field. The planet has turned itself into a self-sustaining generator, running on its own gravity, without fuel, for the last 4 billion years. And somewhere in all that chaos, it is raining diamonds. Geophysicists at the Carnegie Institution have modeled what happens to carbon under this extreme pressure. The result is only one thing: diamonds the size of houses crystallizing in the dark and falling inward for thousands of kilometers before the core heat finally dissolves them. This has been happening in total silence since long before the Earth even existed. Speaking of silence, that is something about Saturn's rings nobody talks about. The Cassini imaging team photographed ring particles ranging from grains of sand to boulders the size of stadiums, all moving at tens of thousands of kilometers per hour, separated by hard vacuum. No air between them, none. You could stand next to a chunk of ice the size of a building moving faster than a rifle bullet and hear nothing at all. The most spectacular thing in the solar system makes no sound whatsoever. But that silence was eventually broken, not by the planet, but by the very thing that spent its life watching it. On September the 15th, 2017, the mission controllers at JPL deliberately flew Cassini into Saturn. 13 years of mission, thousands of discoveries, and at the end, the team made a final choice: point the spacecraft inward. No return trajectory. The reason was scientific. They could not risk Cassini eventually drifting into orbit around Enceladus or Titan and contaminating those moons with Earth bacteria. So they flew it in. The team watched the telemetry on that last morning as Cassini hit the upper atmosphere and began to tumble. Its thrusters fired automatically, fighting to hold the antenna pointed at Earth for every last second, still transmitting data, pressure readings, temperature, atmospheric composition, right up until the signal cut. The spacecraft they had lived with for 20 years, the one that had sent back the photographs of geysers on Enceladus and methane lakes on Titan, and 1,000 things nobody had imagined, dissolved into Saturn's clouds. It became, in its final seconds, part of the planet it had spent its entire life studying. Saturn is not dangerous the way an explosion is dangerous. It does not announce itself. What makes it terrifying is the order, the hexagons with ruler-straight walls, rings thin as paper and wide as continents, a magnetic field running without a power source, diamonds falling in the dark. Everything exactly where it should be, organized by physical laws we have not yet fully written down. That is what no photograph captures. It looks too organized to be natural, too precise. The kind of thing you would draw in a notebook when imagining an alien solar system. And then you find out it is real, right here in our own backyard, and you still do not entirely believe it. We got close once. Cassini spent 13 years there, answered 1,000 questions, and created 10,000 more. What comes next depends on whether we are willing to go back, to build something that can go deeper and last longer. A final question for those who still crave to conquer the final frontier. If given the chance, would you dare send a human crew to venture into that hell of ice and crushing pressure? Or should Saturn remain a wonder meant only to be witnessed from a distance? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe as we continue our journey into the most haunting corners of the cosmos. I'll see you at the next coordinates.